Hey guys, Chris from Average Skate Reviews here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new board from Evolve Skateboards created in partnership with Loaded, and that's the Onirique or the Onirique. Now this board, I feel, encompasses a lot of elements that are sometimes being neglected in the electric skateboard world. A lot of the boards that we see, and don't get me wrong because I'm a big fan of things like four-wheel drive boards and also now carbon boards, but what we're starting to see is electric skateboards pulling away from being skateboards and more electric vehicles. Whereas this, I feel, is a much better amalgamation of those two worlds, skateboards and the electric world fusing together. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the brand Loaded that Evolve's partnered with to create these, because I know a lot of people that got into electric skateboards, an electric board might have been the first skateboard they ever rode. Loaded makes some of the most incredible skateboard decks that money can buy. It essentially encompasses, or their decks encompass, everything that I feel a rider would want in terms of the ergonomics, the design, the build, the materials, and most importantly, performance and feel. Now, in addition to this, Loaded are also very well known for manufacturing some of the best street wheels that money can buy. Of course, those are the wheels featured on this board. And Evolve and Loaded have been doing what they've been doing for over a decade. So it's really nice to see those two companies come together and create what I feel is a much better representation of an electric skateboard rather than an electric vehicle, like some of the other boards that we're seeing. Now, we can't go too far without talking about the design of the board. I'm a big fan of the low-stated Evolve logo. I like how it's actually on the deck and not on the grip tape. Big fan of the colors and patterns that Loaded have added to the grip tape. And of course, if we flip the board over, Evolve and Onirique, or Onirique as I'm hearing a lot of people pronouncing it, at the top, the exposed bamboo looks absolutely sweet with this crazy art that Loaded have added to the bottom of the board. It looks incredibly good. Purple wheels, I think, add a nice flair to it. I don't think orange would pop as well, but overall, just really impressed with the build quality, the design. Evolve are known for making pretty boards, and this is definitely one of them. I feel like Loaded with Evolve have done an incredible job. Like I said at the start of the video, a lot of skateboards out there are moving away from being skateboards and more electric vehicles, where I feel like this is the perfect blend of the components that we expect an electric board to have, married up with a deck that's been designed by a company that's been making decks for over 2 decades, that knows exactly what they're doing and has designed a deck specifically for an electric skateboard. It's definitely worth mentioning that. Loaded haven't made this deck and then Evolve have kind of picked it up and gone, let's slap some components on that. Loaded have designed this deck specifically for Evolve skateboards, knowing that it's going to have all of these components, the battery housing, motors, etc., big trucks, all added to it for the purposes of turning it into an electric board, which has a massive impact on the end result and, of course, the ride and feel that you get from the Onirique. Now, of course, all of the details that you would expect to be in a review in terms of the real world range, the real world speed, all of that is going to be featured in the actual review. This is more of a first impressions of what this board's been like. The most comparable board that Evolve manufactured to this is, of course, going to be the Stoke. This is very much so comparable to that board. The major differences between it is going to be the fact that the battery inside this board is 50% larger than what we see inside the Stoke board from Evolve. Now, in terms of the watt hours, the Stoke was giving us 144 watt hours. This is giving us 216. So you can expect to get a better range out of this board. Evolve are claiming 15 miles, but of course that will be tested. Top speed on this board is 22 miles an hour, pretty much the same as what you're getting on the Stoke, but all of this will be tested in the actual review. Now, when we look at how this board feels and performs in comparison to the Stoke, it's the closest thing that I can kind of describe to VS against this. The main difference is going to be, for me, the first thing is the deck shape. The new deck shape is not only more kind of skateboard-esque versus the Stoke, which was more like shark fin surfboard type style, which I really enjoyed. But a lot of you that have that board or have seen that board know that that deck is incredibly flat. Now, while it's incredibly comfortable to carve with, to ride with, you can slide the hell out of that board, you can do some tricks on it. That flat deck does make it more difficult to be able to do those things, but you can do it. And of course, before I forget, if you want to pick up your own board, there'll be a link down below in the video description to a $50 or a £50 coupon code and a link for you to follow to the Evolve website to pick up your board. Gives you a bit of discount, helps us out, helps us keep these videos coming. Make sure you use the link down below in the video description or our coupon code to save 50 on your next order. Now, this deck has a completely different shape to it, different concave, and also flares right at the base over here where your feet go, which means that you have a lot more leverage, you have a lot more control over the deck. Something else that is a big difference from this versus the Stoke is going to be the placement of the wheels. The extended wheelbase that you get on the Onirique or the Onirique is much more comfortable. You feel a lot more stable at the top speeds that the board's able to hit, or just generally cruising around. This board makes you feel a lot more planted, a lot more stable, and a lot more connected to the board. Aside from this, another big difference that I really like is the full grip tape. Now, of course, while the Stoke looked incredible and it had that rubbery foam pad on the back of it that I kind of liked but complained about when you're doing things like sliding, this is just a full grip board. Of course, if you're wondering, does it have a kicktail? It still does, but it's nowhere near as exaggerated as what we see on the Stoke. And it's also not as large, which is what allows for the extended wheelbase on this board versus the Stoke. The length between this board and the Stoke is about an inch difference. Now, the Stoke being pointed means that you have a lot less usable space. This being more rounded means you have a lot more usable space. So your foot placement is also going to be a little bit wider, or you can make it a little bit wider than what you would typically get on the Stoke. Now, in terms of the width, this board is a little bit wider than the Stoke, which for me isn't something that I've really been able to feel on the board. It's more been along the lines of that wheelbase, and the shape change is what has such a drastic effect on how it feels. You feel so much more locked into the board, and because it does still have a kicktail, you can lift it up, you can manual it, you can do a few tricks with it, but doing things like carving and sliding, tic-tac-toeing around a city are incredibly easy with this board. And of course, it is lighter than the Stoke, which I feel like is a big difference. The Stoke was around 9.8 kilograms. This is about 9.2. So it's going to be lighter if you're having to lug it upstairs, go through trains, jump on buses, hop off buses, or walk up flights of stairs, or go through elevators. It's just a lot more easier to drag around with you if you're going in and out of buildings, which kind of leads on to the next point quite nicely, which is the places that I feel this board's going to excel. Now, if you're the type of rider that wants to get on a board and just absolutely thrash it at top speed, you want to ride over various materials or various surfaces like I'm on right now, this might not be the ideal board to do that. That's where you go for the all-terrain boards. But where this excels is definitely going to be in a city, somewhere that is congested. You need to be agile, you need to be maneuverable to get around objects or obstacles. This is going to be the ideal board for being able to do that. And the extended wheelbase really does help with uneven surfaces or rougher surfaces, or just cruising at faster speeds. This overall, I feel, would be a great board for people that live in a city that need something to commute with. And also, if you're not using it to commute with, it's just a fun board to be able to go out and rip with. If you happen to live somewhere that has some decent roads, they don't have to be completely smooth, but decent roads, you'll have a hell of a lot of fun on this board. Now, while I feel having the clear grip tape that the Stoke board had does give it a very unique look, the full grip tape on this is just more usable. It does allow you to have way more control over the board, which together with the new deck design really does help you to have a lot more control over the board. It's why I'm kind of pushing it towards those people that are going to be in cities ripping around. This is going to be the ideal board to be able to do that with. And of course, it being lighter and being able to outperform the Stoke in terms of range, and in my opinion, I feel a way better deck shape. This is going to be a either great upgrade, or if you're considering picking up a board to be able to get around or to have fun with, this is definitely going to be a board to be considering next. It's no secret, we've said this many times, Evolve do make some pretty boards. I love the bamboo boards that they create. This edition of the Onirique, or the Onirique, I feel is going to be a massive success with the e-skate community, and also perhaps at moving some people that ride traditional skateboards, longboards, over to the electric skateboard community. Like I said, I feel like this is a really good representation of those two worlds coming together, and hopefully you guys feel the same way as well. But of course, I'm going to be going into a lot more detail with the full review, letting you know exactly how it stacks up against the Stoke and some of the other boards that are out there that are quite similar to this. In terms of them being shorter boards, their power, their top speed, etc., I feel like there's not really anything out there that has this flair, that has this look, this design, this ergonomics, but we're still going to be putting up against similar boards to let you know how it ranks, and of course, what we think of it. But as always, guys, a big thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. Stand by for the full review on this board, where we take it into the city, we rip around on it and tell you exactly how far you can get with it, what you can expect from the stats that Evolve are going to give you versus the real world testing, and of course a bunch of other e-skate videos. If you've still been rocking with us for all this time, thank you for staying around. If you're new, hopefully you'll subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video. Take care.